Welcome to the 700 Club. Thanks for joining us. Well, it's just weeks. Well, that's all the time the intelligence community says it would take for Iran to make a nuclear bomb. The Islamic regime has already unveiled new long-range missiles that it claims can reach Israel.
The Biden administration says the window is closing to reach a deal with Iran, and it's making risky concessions to get that deal done. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
One senator called the latest estimate on Iran's timeline for a nuclear weapon sobering and shocking. The White House argues it increases the urgency for the nuclear talks in Vienna.
Our talks with Iran have reached an urgent point on mutual return to full implementation of the JCPOA. A deal that addresses the core concerns of all sides is in sight, but if it is not reached in the coming weeks, Iran's ongoing nuclear advances will make it impossible for us to return to the JCPOA.
Critics warn the Biden administration is giving up too much in its pursuit of a deal. Behnam Bentalibu of the Foundation for Defensive Democracy says for more than a year, the White House has been giving into Iran.
I think the Biden administration is rushing and building this case for an urgent need for a deal off of a year of premature concessions, which you saw through indirect sanctions relief, lack of enforced sanctions, turning a blind eye to illicit Iranian oil exports throughout 2021, as well as having no clear plan to push back on the Islamic Republic in the Middle East.
Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett says lifting sanctions emboldens Iran.
Lifting of sanctions and flooding this regime with billions of dollars means more rockets, more UAVs, more terror squads, more cyber attacks, more of everything. And not only against us, but also against our American allies in the region and other allies.
Bentalibu says the Biden administration is trying to leave the Middle East, but that the Middle East won't leave the U.S.
They're unaware that the Islamic Republic is not only looking to get America out, but to become the hegemon to fill the void, which may in fact create the groundwork for a war that may drive the U.S. back in.
Just days ago, Iran unveiled a long-range missile with a reported range of 1,440 kilometers or 900 miles, putting U.S. bases and Israel well within range. Meanwhile, more than 30 Senate Republicans sent a letter to President Biden demanding the Senate have a say over whether the U.S. rejoins the nuclear deal. The original nuclear agreement in 2015 did not receive Senate approval. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
I think the last group you want to negotiate with is the government in Iran. They are bent on destroying Israel. They're bent on destroying the United States. They call us the great Satan. Israel is the little Satan. Why in the world would you ever go to a negotiating table with that group? It just makes no sense to me. The entire administration currently is trying this great reset. Let's go back to the Obama era. Let's go back to those policies, and whether it's reopening an embassy to the Palestinians in Jerusalem and to their surprise, finding out under international law you can't do that without Israel's approval, to now saying let's take sanctions off of Iran, let's release the pressure in hopes that we can come to some kind of peace deal and they won't develop a nuclear weapon. It just seems to be some kind of alternate reality where they are hoping to believe that these things can come true, but they're not looking it squarely in the face. Iran's a major sponsor, the major sponsor of terrorism in the region. They are funding Hezbollah. They are funding Hamas. They are delivering drones and missiles to Hamas. They are involved in drone attacks on their neighbors. They're running this proxy war against Saudi Arabia. The list goes on and on and on. Why would you ever want to negotiate with them? In other news, hate crimes against the Jewish community in New York City are on the rise. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. The New York Police Department reports 15 hate crimes in January against Jewish people and their properties. That's more than triple the amount of attacks in January of 2021. And the violence is continuing into February with 2 assaults against Jewish men on the streets of Brooklyn over last weekend. This video shows a man running up behind one of the victims before punching him in the head. Police are looking for the suspect. They're also seeking information on who might have spray painted swastikas on these yeshiva school buses. Well, turning now to the crisis in Ukraine, high-ranking Russian and Ukrainian officials are attending talks in Berlin seeking a diplomatic solution to avoid war, just as Russia begins 10 days of military drills today in neighboring Belarus. The Russian Defense Ministry released this video of S-400 missile systems arriving in the country. The Kremlin has also moved troops from Siberia and the Far East for the drills, adding to the 100,000 or more Russian troops already in the area. Meanwhile, President Biden has approved a plan for American troops in Poland to help thousands of U.S. citizens get out of Ukraine if Russia does invade. Some critics charge the administration is working to avoid a repeat of the chaotic pullout from Afghanistan. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki addressing those issues in Wednesday's press briefing.
What people should understand is that the United States does not typically do mass evacuations. Of course, the situation in Afghanistan was unique for many reasons, including that it was the end of a 20-year war. We were bringing a war to an end. We were not trying to prevent a war, as we are certainly in this case. There are a range of means that individuals and Americans can depart from Ukraine, and we've been encouraging them to do exactly that.
In October, the administration estimated some 6,600 Americans were living in Ukraine. Well, here at home, the latest inflation report from the government today shows consumer prices rising at the fastest rate since 1982. The year-over-year inflation rate came in at 7.5%. And the monthly rate in January was 0.6%. Both of those numbers were above economists' expectations and may increase pressure on the Federal Reserve to start raising interest rates. Well, ticket prices for this Sunday's Super Bowl between the Los Angeles Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals are reaching new heights. KTLA in Los Angeles reporting on Monday, Ticketmaster listing its cheapest seats at $4,500 and the highest price seats, $55,000. Well, one Christian ministry is using the big game to highlight outstanding character and leadership in sports. The annual Super Bowl breakfast features the presentation of the Bart Star Award. CBN's Charlene Aaron recently spoke with last year's winner, Demario Davis, about his faith.
The annual Super Bowl breakfast is where faith and football meet. Sponsored by Athletes in Action, the outreach has taken place each year since 1988. Drawing sellout crowds to hear some of the sports' biggest names. Names like Demario Davis of the New Orleans Saints, known for his faith as well as big plays on the field.
Ever since we came in the league, we learned about the Super Bowl breakfast and saw that it wasn't just about the game, but it reflected a life of faith, a life of family, and of football.
Highlights of the outreach include messages of hope, complete with a presentation of the gospel. Davis, a 10-year NFL veteran and all-pro linebacker, received last year's Bart Star Award.
It's a huge honor and a privilege just to be celebrated, by my peers, my coaches, and so many that are critical and such a heavy part of the game. So to receive those accolades means a lot. But I think for me, it's all just reflective of the kingdom, and everything that I do is about being a light for the kingdom. I just want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant.
Davis's wife, Tamala, says her husband's faith inspires her and their family.
One of the things that I just admire is how I constantly just see him seeking God, not just for one thing, but, in every area of his life, for how he's going out on the mission field, for how he strives to serve our family. Every day I watch him get up and read his Bible.
In 2019, Davis saw the cost of his faith when the NFL fined him $7,000 for wearing a headband that said "Man of God" under his helmet. While the NFL eventually backed down, public support for Davis helped create a Man of God movement. Using the publicity, he sold Man of God headbands to raise money for a local hospital. Davis felt it was important to handle the incident in a way that honored God.
I didn't want it to be a situation where I wanted to be breaking the rules because the word tells us to submit to authority. But at the same time, I didn't want it to seem as I was hiding and I was just going to bow down to the league policy and be ashamed of my faith.
A faith this lineman attempts to live out every season.
When you just trust God and you lean into him, he'll make everything else work out the way that it's supposed to. That doesn't always mean it's going to be hunky-dory and it's always going to work out nice. And
Right.
You're always going to have, this, this amazing, award-winning, type of thing happen. But it just means it's going to work out in your favor in the end.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
An encouraging testimony. Gordon, it seems fitting that he plays for a team called the Saints.
He is a saint. It's amazing where you find saints. And you never would expect to find a saint in the linebacker corps, but here he is. You can watch the 1-hour Super Bowl breakfast featuring the Bart Star Award, this year's Bart Star Award, on the CBN News Channel and the CBN News app. It's this Saturday and Sunday. All you have to do is visit cbnnews.com to find the time.